Hello friends, today I want to help you understand how to start a short-term rental business. I'm sure you've seen the cool Vrbo or Airbnb commercials and you've probably said, man, I would love to start my own short-term rental business, but you don't know where to begin. Well, you're in luck because by the end of this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to start a short-term rental business, and I'll even tell you what I did to start my own. I love short-term rentals, vacation rentals. It might be the funnest way to make money in all of real estate because you can own a short-term rental in an awesome area. You can go visit there by yourself or with your family, but you can also rent it out and make really good income from it. But before we go that deep, I want to break this down for you by helping you understand the basics of short-term rental businesses. I'll start with what they are, how they came about. I also want to explain how and why they are moneymakers, but give you some guidance on things you need to look out for. And finally, I want to break down the financial aspect of short-term rentals and how you can set yourself up for success. If you're ready, let's go. So what is a short-term rental? Essentially, a short-term rental is a piece of property that is rented out at nightly rates, anywhere between 1 night up to 30 nights. Right? So it varies from a long-term rental that is usually a residence or a home, a condo, a townhome that is rented out for a longer period of time, 12 months or more. And a midterm rental falls in that range of 30 to maybe 120 days. And that midterm rental is one that goes anywhere from maybe 30 days up to 90, maybe 120 days. So short-term rental is that place where people are going to stay for a few nights up to a week usually, and sometimes people will stay more, but typically it's short-term stays, a week or less. And here's the cool thing about short-term rentals. It literally could be anything where anybody would want to stay. It could be just a normal condo in a big city. It could be a home out in the woods. It could even be a yurt in the forest. It could be a tree house out in the middle of nowhere. Just anywhere that somebody would like to stay when they go on vacation or they're staying somewhere for a short period of time. And if you've ever done any research on Airbnb or Vrbo, there are some pretty cool ones. I've seen everything from a home that's shaped like a dog, or one in Joshua Tree National Forest that's themed as a bunny theme. So everything inside the home has to do with rabbits and bunnies. Anyway, it's pretty amazing just to see some of these unique places that exist around the world. Now, I've talked about this in previous episodes, but I think it's really important to understand when we're talking about starting a short-term rental business is how they came about and why are they so popular. It's really well explained in a book that was written decades ago called The Experience Economy. Essentially, they talk about the different economies that we go through as we progress through the decades, right? So many years ago, maybe 60s, 70s, we were what's called a commodity economy. Then we were a goods economy where we're producing goods. And then we evolved to a service economy where we're providing services for individuals. Currently, and for probably the last decade or so, we've been involved in an experience economy where people want experiences. They're willing to pay money and more money. This is where people are willing to pay for an experience versus just something standard. I mean, think about it. Anytime that you've gone on vacation, there's probably times where you're like, okay, I'll just stay at a hotel. But if you've ever ventured out of that and said, listen, I want something more. I'm going to the city. I want to experience it maybe like a local, or I want to do something that maybe I wouldn't otherwise be able to experience. You get an Airbnb or a Vrbo. I remember this Thanksgiving, my family and I decided to go to the Smoky Mountains for Thanksgiving. I'd been there one time before, but my family hadn't. So we rented this very unique looking home. It was an A-frame. It was awesome. It had a pool in the back. It had a little mini theater room below the A-frame. It was an awesome experience for me and my family. We felt like we were part of the community, part of the Smoky Mountains. So that experience way outdid us staying at a potential hotel anywhere. Even if it was a super nice hotel, just being able to stay at something that gave us an experience was so much more valuable to my family and me. So that's why they're so important, right? We crave this experience, and Airbnbs or Vrbos or short-term rentals, vacation rentals are popping up because people want that experience. It's in high demand. Now, if you're going to start a short-term rental business, there's a few things that you really have to understand. First off, you've got to find properties that are in good areas, right? When I first got started my short-term rental business, I really wanted to find out what areas I should be investing in. And it's probably about 3 or 4 years ago, I got really excited about this market. Interest rates were low, and I really knew that this segment of real estate was starting to take off. So I started looking on Google, where is the best places to own a vacation rental or a short-term rental? And I started comparing which 5 were at the top of this publication versus which 5 were at the top of this publication. And I started making notes, started taking notes of like which cities, which areas were the hottest for these things. Then I started comparing that on AirDNA, which is a cool tool that does the analytics for you. It shows you average nightly stays for revenue, average monthly revenue that comes in certain areas, and average occupancy rate for those areas. So if I really liked an area, but average occupancy rate was maybe 40, 50% versus an area that I liked that had average occupancy rate of 65, 70%, I was going to trend more towards one that had higher occupancy rate because I knew most of the nights would be filled if I went with that area versus another one that had had a much lower occupancy rate. So those are a few things that I did, and I started compiling the areas. Now, after I compiled the areas that I really liked, I jumped into 5 things that are really important for me. And the first thing is regulations, right? Just understanding the regulations of the area. Do they allow for short-term rentals? Is there anything that's going to pop up that might hinder that? And a lot of areas, once they have short-term rentals, they're typically pretty good about keeping those in place because a lot of times that tourism, people coming there, really fuels the economy. Now, there are areas that maybe don't want short-term rentals, or some of the citizens might not be a big fan of short-term rentals, so you really need to understand the regulations behind the city that you're looking at. Second thing is affordability, right? You've got to make sure that you're able to afford it. If you're saying my budget's $500,000 and you're looking in an area that the average home is $800,000, you probably need to move areas. Third is active listings. How many active listings are there? Is the area saturated? Is there thousands of listings, right? Or is there a fair amount of listings that you know the demand is there? So looking at active listings, it's really important. The fourth thing is looking at optimal size. How many beds, how many baths? Now, obviously, most areas are going to be a family or 2 families traveling. So knowing that maybe 3, 4 bedrooms is probably an optimal size, but depending on the area, it might be one. For example, I own a short-term rental in Broken Bow, Oklahoma. It's 1 bedroom, 1 bath. But that serves that segment really well because it's people traveling from Dallas, Oklahoma City, Little Rock, Tulsa that are looking to get away from the heat and the humidity into a nice area with a lake. And rather than going to a hotel, they can stay at this home in a beautiful wooded area and experience the area that way versus a hotel. So it serves that market really well, where we have a lot of couples that will try to leave the big city for a weekend or a couple days, 3 days, 4 days to get away and just have an awesome experience together. And the final thing is the revenue target. You've really got to understand what your potential revenue is there. Because if you're going to buy a home, you've got to make sure that the revenue coming in covers all your expenses, including the mortgage. So one other important aspect that you've really got to understand when starting a short-term rental business is the financial aspect. Now, we talked about affordability, but also let's just talk numbers. Once you've found the area, once you've found all the 5 steps that I just talked about, that it's in high demand, you've really got to understand the data behind it, right? So here's a general rule of thumb that makes it really easy anytime that you're starting a short-term rental business. When you buy a piece of property, once you find the purchase price of that property, you want to make sure that annual revenue of that property is at least 10% of the purchase price. So if you bought a property for $500,000, it at least needs to pull in $50,000 in annual rents. Now, with interest rates being higher, that might need to be a little bit higher as well, but a typical rule of thumb is 10% annual rents of purchase price. Now, a great deal is 15% annual rents of the purchase price. So for example, same example, you buy a home for $500,000 and annual rents is $75,000. That's 15% annual rents of purchase price. That's a pretty good deal. Now, the best deal, one that we say do not pass up, is when annual rents are 20% of the purchase price. So if you bought a home for $500,000 and annual rents are $100,000 or more, that is a deal you do not pass up. That is a great deal to start your short-term rental business. Now, just a few final things is number one, you've got to have a little bit of caution when starting a short-term rental business. You've got to realize that it takes time. And when people are traveling, you've also got to make your property unique, right? Because it's getting more and more competitive, you've really got to differentiate your property from somebody else's. Even if it's something small inside the home, like one of our homes, we have one of those hot dog cookers that you find in a gas station where the hot dogs are on rollers so they can have a hot dog anytime they want. I've seen people that have an ice cream maker in their home. Now, obviously, there are unique things you can do to your home, but finding a property that is unique already, it already gives you a jump start on separating yourself from another property. You've also got to be careful of saturated areas, right? There are some areas that have almost no regulations and everybody's buying short-term rentals, and that makes it even more competitive. And so the opportunity for people when they travel to that area, they have a lot of options. So once again, making it creative and unique is going to be really important when you start your short-term rental business. And the final thing is just realize you can start small. I know people who own a home or a nice home and they can rent out a room, right? Or a basement apartment as a short-term rental. I remember one time I was going to Sun Valley and I was looking for a place to stay. I just needed one night and I ended up staying in an individual's spare bedroom. It was awesome. Great experience. I wasn't there very long, but it fit what I was doing perfectly. And this was just a way that this individual was supplementing their mortgage payment or their income through renting out a room in their home. Now realize that might not be something that you're comfortable with, but realize there's other ways to do it. One of the most successful short-term rentals I heard about from somebody that I know that owned short-term rentals was a condo in Knoxville, Tennessee. It was a small condo, 2-bedroom, 1 bath, but its occupancy rate was almost 90%. Whether people were coming just to visit there, needed a place to stay, or visiting the University of Tennessee, going to games, basketball games, football games, it was something that stayed completely full most of the year, but it was really small and didn't cost them a lot of money. So you can start small. So these are things that I've done to get started with short-term rentals to get my business going. I currently own 6 of them and I'm looking to add to that all the time, but I'd be interested in what you're doing to start a short-term rental business. And as always, I've got a free gift for you. It's actually a short-term rental calculator. Just click on the link below, aaronsfreetraining.com. It is a vacation short-term rental calculator. You put the input in, price, expenses, and it spits out to you whether it's a good deal. It lets you know know if it's in that 10% or 20%, depending on the numbers that you put into it. As always, I appreciate you stopping by. Thanks for visiting. Have an awesome day.